welcome to this FlightGlobal.com video interview with John Carmack, the founder of Armadillo Aerospace and fairly famous in the computer game software world. Well, thanks for talking to us today, John.
Sure.
You're talking today at the Space Access Society. You mentioned that you've helped out NASA with their J2X engines igniter. Can you talk about that?
That was sort of a targeted opportunity where we'd been doing this methane engine work for NASA, and we had an engine that was getting ready to go to the White Sands test facility when we were contacted by our main interface at NASA, and they asked if we might be available to test a pyro igniter. And all of our normal engines are ignited by a torch igniter, where it's a mini rocket engine that lights the big rocket engine on there. But we were in a position where I thought, sure, that's easy. Our film-cooled engines don't really have like an outer cooling jacket, so all we have to do is drill a hole in the side of the engine and weld on an adapter and set it up there and twiddle with the computer stuff a little bit so it fires this cap rather than starting our spark plug and all that. And it didn't take us long to set that up. When the parts got down there, they had this little J2X stenciled on them, and one of our guys was like, this isn't really for the J2X, is it? And we were told that, yeah, it is. They built all of these, but the program where they did the development, they ran out of funding to actually do their hot fire testing. Clearly they planned to test it before they actually used it in a J2X, but they hadn't gotten around to it on the currently budgeted stuff. So we set everything up, and we did one kind of offline bench test on it, then we fired the engine horizontally on it, and then we actually flew one of our engines hover testing on a tether system off of the pyro igniter, and it all went really nicely.
You mentioned you're doing some work with NASA. Will you be working with NASA again later this year?
Well, at this point, we sure hope so, because we had a really great time working with these guys, this particular part of NASA, over the last year. But as I understand it, some of the IPP funding got zeroed out this year, and they're scrambling around trying to figure out what to do, so we really don't know at this point.
Okay. You also mentioned today a student payload you might be flying in about a month's time. Can you talk about that?
So we're very interested in the suborbital science and the human-tended suborbital science markets on there. Now, there's no possible budget for that until 2011. There's currently budgeted money for doing studies about what that can be used for in 2010. None of that would be going to any vehicle providers. But we're actually in contact with some of the universities involved with some of this stuff, and we've agreed to do some free payload integration and testing. And there's going to be a few benefits for that, where for the universities and the students working on it, they get the experience of building a payload to a schedule, delivering it, integrating it with the rocket, going through the whole process of recovering data. We don't expect that there's going to be a lot of really good science coming out of this, because the flights that we're doing in the near future are going to be half G flights or something. There's not going to be any quality microgravity or upper atmospheric sensing. But this is going on in the next 2 months. We expect this happens literally within the next 7-8 weeks or so to do the first set of that. And we've got a set of additional tests that will be going that will probably be carrying payloads of opportunity there. People have to understand these are our test flights. We may wind up trashing our vehicle with their payload alongside, but we hope by the end of the year to be out at Spaceport America. And we probably will continue carrying payloads, letting people piggyback during our test process through all of this. And we expect that people are going to be thrilled with the prospect of this. And then when it sinks in that you've got this opportunity to fly your payload, get it back, eventually ride alongside the payload, twiddle the knobs yourselves, and be able to do this on a call-up schedule of, worst case, a couple weeks if we're in Texas and we need to go out to New Mexico to do a flight, but possibly multiple flights in a day if we're doing sequences of things there. And I think that there are going to be compelling grant proposals written for that, or research proposals to say, I want to go do this and I want to fly it 8 times in a day, or I want to fly it every day for a week or a month, and that there's things like that they never, ever have had the capability to do. In addition to the obvious things about taking the experiments you do for 25 seconds on a Vomit Comet ride and being able to extend that to 4 minutes of microgravity and the sort of clearly obvious performance things that you see on a Matrix, but I think the responsiveness is going to be the big deal for people when you're able to iterate your science the way you would in a laboratory rather than this 18-month lead time to put something on a sounding rocket. And it's probably going to take half a decade for that to really percolate through the whole scientific community and for people to realize that there's a different way of doing this research. But we want to get that started real soon.
Okay, so it's a good idea to give them a few freebies at the beginning. Yeah. Goodwill, exactly, I understand. You had an announcement with the New Mexico state government and Rocket Racing Incorporated. You mentioned today that didn't quite work out. Can you explain why that happened?
Well, there's I wasn't actually even party to all the discussions. Like, I actually don't even know what went on between State of New Mexico and Rocket Racing on there. And we're certainly talking with all parties involved on that. But the hope was that that deal would kind of come to fruition at some point by now, and it hasn't. So we're pursuing a lot of other things right now, still in the same general direction. But there was certainly some hope that that was the big step there, that we were going to be full-time on the suborbital manned vehicles in this time frame, and that has not come together.
Part of that announcement was a reference to possibly building a prototype manned vehicle this year, and you put out one concept design. Today you've shown us a slightly different, updated design. Is there any prospect of you going ahead and beginning to put together that vehicle this year?
We have lots of different concepts for things that depend on whether we're more worried about tipping over, aerodynamic drag, and different things like that. There's a good chance we will build some version of a lot of these different concepts, but we probably will not. There's still a good chance that we'll wind up, even this year, beginning to build a manned suborbital vehicle on there. But we currently have 4 of our modular airframes, which we more or less intend to expend this year. We're going to be flying them higher and faster until we crash them by running into something we didn't understand. So we have a lot of airframes that we're going to go through before we wind up building up the next bigger airframe that hopefully doesn't have to be crashed as many times as the smaller ones. But we'll definitely, as I said, we've been building pretty regularly 2 vehicle configurations a year for a long time, and I expect we'll fly at least 2 unique vehicle configurations this year.
Okay. And you've mentioned this iPhone gadget you've developed. Can you talk about that?
So for the long time, when we talk about our vehicles, they're basically autonomous. There will be people riding in them, but they're not moving levers and turning knobs and stuff in there. And we have to give them some interface to the vehicle on there. And the plan for a while has been to basically give them an iPhone, and you look on it and it says, here's your altitude, here's your speed, here's your projected apogee, and maybe one button for stop thrusting, I don't want to take any more G's on this. And I waive my right to have gone to 100 kilometers. And I just finally, like a week ago, reconfigured the wireless system on our flight computer to act as an encrypted access point like that, and so I actually can talk to it with my iPhone now. And I'm probably going to write some of that software just for our pad crew. It'll be cool to have around when they're loading propellant, for everybody to just be able to look down in their hand and see what the current tank pressures and various other telemetry features are.
Yeah. Okay. And well, thanks for all that. And any announcements we can expect in the coming months?
It's possible. There are several things going on that I wouldn't say anything is imminent in the next couple weeks, but there are developments that may be in the month or 2 range, significant announcements.
Okay, well, thanks to us today, John Carmack of Armadillo Aerospace.
All right, thank you.